This is a Squiz Kids podcast. Your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you.
Iron Man,
Spider-Man,
Black Widow.
Black Panther.
These Marvel characters are on your lunchboxes and pyjamas, as well as on our TV and movie screens. But how are they all connected? This is your Squiz Kids Shortcut to the Marvel Universe. The podcast where we dive into the who, what, when, where, why and how of the big news stories. I'm Amanda Bauer.
And I'm Bryce Cork.
Bryce, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is out.
Yeah.
It's the 31st film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is called the MCU for those in the know. This film has a lot to do with Rocket, the genetically engineered raccoon-based master of weapons and battle tactics.
Awesome.
I know a lot of kids who are excited to see this one.
Yeah, definitely. Although, to be honest, a lot of kids are excited to see just about anything that has the word Marvel associated with it.
True, and it's for that reason that today we're going to take you through what exactly this Marvel Cinematic Universe is, who is behind the thousands of characters in it, how the movies are made, and why they're so popular.
Nice.
Listen carefully, there's a squiz at the end.
What?
So, Bryce, when I was researching this shortcut, which, by the way, was a pretty fun job,
I'll bet.
I watched a YouTube video that gave a 22-minute overview of what's happened in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far.
Oh, yeah.
I'll include it in the episode notes, although it could make your head spin. When people call it a universe, they aren't joking. Marvel Comics, starting more than 50 years ago, set up this entire universe across multiple planets with thousands of characters and plot lines.
Wow. And so then they made movies about some of those characters.
Exactly. This whole universe concept of movies got started in 2008 with the first Iron Man movie.
I loved it.
It was wildly successful, and not long after it was released, Disney bought Marvel Entertainment. With the power of Disney behind it, the MCU really took off. Iron Man 2, Captain America and Thor followed, and they were all massive hits.
Oh, yeah, I loved those films. So each movie, if I'm right, focuses on a different comic book character, right?
Well, yes and no. Because it's a connected universe, one character will often show up in another character's movie.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are movies like The Avengers, which bring multiple Marvel characters together.
I love the Avengers.
Yeah, so although each movie does make sense all by itself, there's a bigger picture out there.
And, of course, there are TV shows too.
That's right. If you've got 2,619 characters in your universe, the content possibilities are endless.
Who was it at Marvel that decided all those years ago to create a universe of connected superhero characters?
Who?
Well, Bryce, the brains behind the MCU was a man called Stanley Lieber. When Stanley was just 17 years old, he got a job as an assistant at the comic book division of a publishing house in New York City.
Cool.
Starting out, his job was to refill the inkwells used by the artists. It was that long ago. They dipped their pens in ink, and he'd get them lunch and that kind of thing. And a couple of years after that, he was given the opportunity to write a Captain America comic. Now, Stanley actually really wanted to write serious novels, so he didn't want to use his real name on the comic. He created what's known as a pen name, and instead of Stanley Lieber, he called himself Stan Lee.
Stan Lee, of course. If you say Stan Lee today, he's basically the most famous comic book creator in the world.
That is for sure, Bryce. He never did write that novel, but Stan Lee went on to create characters like Spider-Man, the X-Men, Iron Man, Thor,
The Hulk, Ant-Man, the Wasp, the Fantastic Four.
Black Panther, Daredevil, Doctor Strange.
All Scarlet Witch, the Black Widow, and Captain Marvel.
And all those character stories are connected within the same universe.
Wow, that is quite an achievement for Stan Lee. All those characters are super complicated. They look different, they speak differently, they all have different backstories. Speaking of characters, Stan Lee was a pretty funny guy. Once Disney started making all of those MCU movies, didn't he also act in them?
Yeah, that's one of those things that MCU superfans know to look out for. Stan Lee had little roles, which are known as cameos, in every MCU movie made until he died in 2018. He's played a security guard, a postman. He's the school bus driver in Spider-Man. And he always has just a little bit of a knowing grin on his face.
Oh, that's cool. So every MCU movie made up until 2018 had Stan Lee on the screen, as well as behind writing the story. Did they also have the same team making them each time? How exactly are these films made?
How?
Actually, Bryce, that's one of the really interesting things about the MCU, and one of the reasons that film critics think the franchise is so popular. They do not use the same director each time, and they actually go for directors who aren't known for making big blockbuster superhero films.
So hang on a minute. What's a director?
Oh, good question. Sorry. A director is the person who has overall responsibility for how the film is shot.
Take one.
He or she gives directions to the people operating the cameras, the people doing the special effects, the actors in the movie, the hair and makeup people, people who are doing the costumes. It's a really big job.
Wow. And why does Marvel change directors all the time?
Well, I think it's to keep things different. The characters are connected between the movies, but each movie really has its own flavour. For example, Ant-Man is basically a heist movie, which is to say it sort of involves a robbery.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy is honestly just a crazy space musical with an excellent soundtrack.
Best
Winter
soundtrack.
Soldier is more like a spy movie. And what I found really interesting, Bryce, is that most of the directors, before they were hired by Disney, were used to working with budgets about 1/7 the size of what they were given for their Marvel creations.
A budget, of course, is the amount of money that is given to a director to make the film. So how much does the average MCU film cost to make?
It is a big number, Bryce. The visual and special effects alone cost up to $200 million per film.
And a lot of that money is being spent right here in Australia too, isn't it?
You betcha. Disney's visual effects division, which is called Industrial Light and Magic, opened a Sydney studio in 2019, and they have more than 300 people working here on upcoming movies.
Okay, so they spend a ton of money on each film. They have amazing effects. Each film has a different tone, and all the characters are connected in one complicated universe. So the Marvel folk have clearly hit on a winning formula.
Well, people in the film world say thanks to the MCU, the idea of a film franchise, which is the fancy name given to a bunch of movies all connected to the same theme, that it will never be the same.
Time for the quiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. Which movie kicked off the MCU? That's right, it was Iron Man.
Question 2. What was Stanley Lieber's pen name? You got it. It was Stan Lee.
Question number 3. What's the word for the little roles that Stan Lee had in the MCU films until he died? Yeah, it's cameo.
That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us as we explored the who, what, how, where, when, and why of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Now get out there and have a most excellent day.
Over and out.